Hey y'all, it's Chelsea and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we're going to be going over my January wrap-up. We're giving you bad lighting, we're giving you bad setup, we're giving you bare face and messy hair because I just got off of work. It is Monday and my animals are driving me nuts. If I don't film this today, I don't think I ever will, so we're just gonna power through like the boss bitches we are. It only made sense to start this year off with a reread, so I decided to pick up Sheets. I read this for the first time back in September and absolutely fell in love with it. I gave it 4 stars. We follow a girl named Marjorie as she's trying to keep her family's laundromat afloat after her mother dies, and she's just dealing with a lot. And then she comes across Wendell, a ghost, who is literally covered in a sheet. And it's just so heartbreaking and so heartwarming. And it was even better the second time around. I actually bumped my 4-star rating to a 5-star. All of it is just, I love it. I love it. I love it. I could read it over and over again. Not only did I want to revisit a favorite, but I also got the sequel, Delicates. I was honestly let down that this story doesn't follow Marjorie and Wendell as much as Eliza. Eliza is definitely our main character, as is she is on the cover. She is definitely the unpopular kid. She likes weird things. I don't think it's weird, but middle school girls are mean no matter how fabulous their hair is. I'm talking about you, Tessie. Her hobbies are not what most middle school girls are into. I think Eliza is badass. She is really into photography. She takes her camera everywhere with her. By the way, her camera is named Lorraine after Lorraine Warren. I was sold after that. I just fell in love with this girl after that. We don't follow Marjorie and Wendell as much in this volume, and Marjorie kind of becomes a mean girl by association, which really didn't sit well with me, but she does come around towards the end. I don't care if that's a spoiler. There's definitely much more plot and harder hitting topics in this installment, but I just didn't love it as much as Sheets. I don't know why, but it was definitely great. And not only do I own this book, I owned a signed copy. Woo! Shout out to Barnes & Nobles. Y'all are always pulling through. The next book I picked up was Bruised. This was one of my most anticipated reads when it first came out, and I sat on it forever, and I now want to kick myself for waiting so long to pick it up. This is basically gay girls on a roller derby team. What more do you need? This gave me all the gay rep. This gave me all the whip it feels. Connected with the main character on a whole nother level. The main character's trauma and her ways of coping with that trauma are completely different than the ways I have coped with my trauma in the past, but her reasoning behind it all resonated with me so deeply. I cried at the end. So can we talk about how beautiful this cover is? Like, oh my gosh, look at her. The next book I read was The Dowry of Blood. Now this was basically everywhere. Jan from Jan Agaton basically shoved this book down my throat in her vlogs all year. This was on basically everyone's favorite books of 2021. I'm a bit late to the game, but the hype for this one is real. My feelings have never felt so justified, nor have I ever felt so seen. I was totally on board about a story following Dracula's wives, but this is so much more than that. Having been in an emotionally abusive relationship in the past, this story just hit me harder than I think any book ever can or ever will. I don't know if any of y'all listen to Hayley Williams' solo albums, but I felt so much of those albums in this story, and it just made it that much more heartbreaking. The parallels are uncanny. That poor woman, bless her soul. And can I just say, having these emotional abusive topics told through the perspective of vampires is just absolutely genius. Like, I annotated the shit out of this book, and that is not normally something I do. I felt like I needed to just highlight the entire thing. I dog-eared pages. Like, I attacked this book, and oh God. Next book I read is The Astonishing Color of After. I cannot believe it took me 4 years to pick up this book. This book is one of the most beautiful things I have ever read. We follow Lee while she's battling the grief of losing her mother to suicide. She's struggling to patch up the relationship with her father, and she's crushing on her only friend. It was heart-wrenchingly gorgeous. Every topic was written with such love and care. It really drives home the message that it's not too late. Never too late to forgive, never too late to rekindle, never too late to try. Magical realism at its absolute best. If you were like me and you've slept on this book for the last 4 years, please pick it up. I definitely cried. Next book I picked up was The Wicker King. This book was really strange, to say the least. The characters are well developed and the format is fun. The pages in my copy actually started to fall apart as I got more into the black pages. One thing I really loved about this book was the writing. Some of the writing in here is so explicitly gay that we as a reader never have to flat out be told that these boys are hopelessly in love with each other. This is definitely a story that I'll forget over time. Honestly, it's been less than a month since I've read this and I've already forgotten most of it, but I loved the writing so much that I do want to pick up more by this author. Now, the next book I read is Serpent and Dove. I held off on this book for years because the hype with this one is ridiculous, and when it comes to trashy YA fantasy stories, I am usually not on board, but I kept seeing this one around, and I know the series is finished, so I thought, what the hell, when I saw it at Half Price Books, so I just picked it up, and I devoured this book. A witch and a witch hunter get married. That's really all you need to know going into this. I don't recommend delving any further in than that. Just let the story unfold, and it just takes you on this wild ride. Fell so instantly in love with Lou. I think she is my favorite protagonist that I've read from. I know in other reviews that I've seen, people don't really care for her that much, but I think she's a badass bitch and she's not afraid to show it. What was even more fun about this book is I actually ship Lou and Reed, which are the witch and the witch hunter who get married. So that was nice. Usually I don't care for the love interest, but I just loved their banter and seeing that they really didn't hate each other, that really they just wanted to fuck. It was a really good time. I can't wait to read the next two. Next book I picked up was An Emotion of Great Delight. The rep in these stories I feel is just so important. I don't want her to stop writing these stories, and I do have faith that the more she writes in this genre, the better they'll be. I really didn't feel any kind of emotion despite the title until the last few dozen pages, but those were really good pages. I think it's mostly the writing style that I don't click with. Or maybe it's because it's YA and this is kind of short, so I just feel like it could delve so much more into things, and it just doesn't. Next book I read is You've Reached Sam. This book, I don't even know how to talk about this book. In this book, we follow Julie. Now, Julie is dating Sam, and they are super madly in love. They have their whole... they have a 5-year plan. They have it all planned out. They know exactly what they're going to do. And then, poof, Sam dies. And that's the kind of story this is. This is the only book that I've ever read that's had me sobbing from start to finish. Absolutely heartbreaking, but it is so perfect, so beautifully told. I don't have a single bad thing to say about it. My only issue is that I didn't film my reactions while I was reading it. So I guess I can do a little reenactment for y'all. So imagine, it's the middle of the night. It's dark. You're in your recliner. You're nice and comfortable. You have your cat in your lap, it's a good time. Yeah, that was me. For 300 pages, that was me. After I finished this book, I had to crawl into bed and wake up my girlfriend and have her hug me because I was just so glad she wasn't dead. Such a beautiful book. I recommend everyone read it, and if it doesn't make you cry, I'm sorry, but you're heartless. Of course, after reading a banger book such as You've Reached Sam, it had to downfall somewhere, and my downfall was The Lesson in Vengeance. This book fucking sucked. I don't remember anything about it anymore, but I gave it 2 stars. It was awful. I felt like it was a waste of my time. It's supposed to give all the dark academia, secret society type vibes, and it was just Stupid. I fucking hated it. Literally, I've forgotten every single thing. I couldn't even tell you the main character's name. All that I remember is that I hated this book. Hated. This is my most disappointing book of the year. I don't think anything is going to disappoint me more than this book disappointed me, which is a fucking shame because it's gorgeous. Look at it. So after that fiasco, I decided to pick up something that I felt that I was really going to vibe with, and that is the Once and Future Witches. This wasn't the type of story that I was expecting it to be, but the writing is absolutely gorgeous. It gave me like practical magic vibes, where it was still really witchy, but it was also very much about family and girl power. You know, if you've seen Practical Magic, you know the vibes. And I mean Practical Magic, the movie, not the book. The book sucked. It was definitely a good read. It was very engrossing and beautiful, and it had a lot to say about women and who run the world? Girls, basically. The next book I read is Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Now, my experience with Taylor Jenkins Reid is that her character work is exceptional, but her plots are extremely flat and predictable. I loved the first half of this book. I loved following this family around because, again, Taylor Jenkins Reid's characters are amazing. But as we get to the point where we're really submerged into this epic party that this family holds every year, it just was boring. This whole story was pitched as an epic party that catches fire by the end of the night. And it felt really bland. Like, the fire is literally 2 pages at the very end of the book, and it almost felt like an afterthought. Like, oh yeah, I pitched this book as an epic party that's going to go up in flames, so let me just set it on fire real quick. And also the scenes, like when you're at the party, you get a couple pages in between each chapter about like random people at said party, and it just felt boring and lame, and like I didn't care because we were already so late into the story and I knew we weren't going to see these characters again. So like, I don't care what drugs they're doing or who they're trying to fuck. Like, I didn't care. Definitely understand why her diehard fans loved this book, and I also can see why people didn't like it so much. I fall somewhere in the in-between, but I know what I'm getting into with her books. I go into them for the characters. I already know the plot, and everything else is kind of going to be shitty. So if you're looking to read about some really interesting characters, then I would definitely suggest giving this book and her others a try. But if you're going in wanting like plots that aren't predictable, I think you're going to have to go somewhere else. The last book of the month that I read is After Love. Now, I fell so deeply in love with this edition that I bought it off of somebody online because I needed it, and then it took me like 4 months to finish reading it. It was definitely a mediocre read. It definitely let me down. I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that it is YA, and I'm growing further and further away from that age bracket, so things just don't hit the same. But I am definitely down for some lesbian lovers and grim reapers. I would love there to be more stories like this. I just wish that it delved deeper into everything. Like, it's not that thin of a book. It's pretty chunky considering, and I just feel like those pages were almost wasted because we didn't really delve deep into anything. Like, we didn't really get to see these girls' relationships grow. We really didn't get to see the whole Grim Reaper aspect from a very deep perspective. I just wanted so much more from it, but it was fun. I'll probably end up unhauling it, which is a shame because it is just so pretty and it's signed, but I just don't think I'm gonna read it again. And that was it. Those were all the books that I read this month. Oh my god, this video is probably trash, but I don't even care. If you have stayed tuned this long, please drop me a comment down below. Talk to me. Have you read any of these books? Are there any of these that you want to read now? Please let me know. I'd love to talk to y'all. If you could like and subscribe, that would be great. And I will see y'all soon for a new video. Bye.